So I'm going to cover just a few things just momentarily. One is I saw on Contact with Chris Hedges, where he was talking with Charles Derber, and he said this excellent introduction, which I thought I'd quickly read. If you're not dedicated to the destruction of empire and the dismantling of American militarism, then you cannot count yourself as a member of the left, and you are certainly not socialist. This is not a side issue, it is the issue. There will be no genuine democratic, social, economic, or political justice until we destroy our permanent war machine. Militarists and war profiteers are our greatest enemy. They are, as Karl Liebknecht said, quote, the enemy within. And that's Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize recipient, and he was talking with Charles Derber on dismantling security tales on Contact. And this is for about New Start, which is an Australian social security system for unemployed people. And New Start is so poor, it's so low, the amount of money that they're giving to recipients, that people cannot possibly live on it. New Start hasn't increased for the last 25 years, so you can imagine trying to live on something where it hasn't kept up with inflation, etc. And that's appalling, considering we have a sovereign economy here in Australia, and I know that we can afford to pay people at least the amount of the pension that people receive on the pension, and on the pension people are saying they can't live on that. So it's just appalling that this is the Australian Labor Party just ignores people on New Start and won't commit to any increase. They say it needs an increase, but they won't commit to anything. They're just a neoliberal party, the Australian Federal Labor Party. And a recent study, researchers described the first report to look at the broad health outcomes for people on New Start and disability support pensions at the Monash University. And the studies reported that there were stark differences in the health outcomes compared with those with paid work. What a surprise. Australia's 700,000 New Start recipients, that's the unemployment benefits, were more likely to be hospitalised than wage earners, more often reported, quote, mental and behavioural problems, end quote, and generally faced, quote, an increased burden of ill health, end quote. The lead researcher, Professor Alex Colley, told The Guardian that an increase in the rate of the unemployment benefit could turn these health outcomes around and help get people back to work. I have a better idea, and it's something that I've understood via Real Progressives on Facebook, and they're actually they talk about MMT, modern monetary theory, which is simply a description of the operational reality of a sovereign economy. So when you understand the operational reality of a sovereign economy, then you understand sorry, Rooney's trying to get my attention. Then you understand that that the sovereign economy can afford to not only pay these people who are suffering from institutionalized unemployment, it's intentional institutionalized unemployment, but they could be getting a federal job guarantee, and I invite you to look up what that means, a federal job guarantee. It's something that Dr. Stephanie Kelton, who's Bernie Sanders' economic advisor in the US for 2016 and 2020, talks about a federal job guarantee. And to forget about a universal basic income, that's a neoliberal scam. So she often compares the two, and federal job guarantee. And that doesn't mean slave labor. It doesn't mean that people are forced to work if they don't want to, but it's something that we need to understand, and it's something that Australia could benefit greatly from. So you can imagine if you're getting almost like a sixth of what a lot of people get wage-wise, and you have to pay sort of $150 a week just for a rent, and you're getting $250 Australian a week from New Start. Most of that goes on rent, and then you have to survive on the rest of it. And then you have to look for, I think, 10 jobs a fortnight or something, some ridiculous amount of jobs, which cost money. Sending out resumes and all of that costs money. So it's just an intentional cruelty towards the poor, towards the unemployed, towards people on disability. This is the right-wing government we have, the Scott Morrison government in Australia, and we have an Australian Labor Party, which is a neoliberal party. So we are not faring very well here in Australia. So New Start recipients were 6.8 times more as likely to describe their own health as poor. Those on disability pension were 18.3 times more likely to report poor health. Nearly 48.6% of New Start recipients reported, quote, mental and behavioural problems, end quote, compared with 21% amongst wage earners. So 70% of disability pensioners reported a behavioural condition, despite only 16% saying it was their primary disability. Anyway, I won't read that whole article. I'll leave it in the information section, but it's a disgrace. And this is what you get when you have parties that you can hardly see the difference between them, except that one is more crass. The same situation happens in the US with the GOP and the US Democratic Party. They're both two wings of the same bird, but one happens to be just more crass. It was good to see that in California, in the US, that California has banned private prisons, including ICE detention centers. And that's excellent because the private prison system is structural racism, and it's got a disproportionate amount of black people in it, and they are also doing slave labor, basically. So it's the new slavery, the private prison system, and we have them in Australia, and it's going that way too. So I'm looking forward to more of that happening, banning private prisons. It's disgraceful, really. And they then make laws which they then make laws so that it will funnel people into the private prison system. They do that in the United States with migrant workers. They funnel them in, and they get paid about, I don't know, a few $100s each person, each prisoner. And they're raking it in, and the legal system is discriminates. There's no such thing as this blind justice and justice for all. It doesn't work like that. Back to the climate crisis. Increasingly in Australia, even the green areas of Australia are becoming drought-stricken. And ironically, I feel for people who are farmers, but I don't feel for the fact that they're exploiting animals for profit. And of course, they wouldn't be there if we were all vegan. But the problem is that they're crying out and saying that we have drought and we have floods and we can't continue on with cow farming and all of that, and yet animal agriculture is the greatest driver of the climate crisis. So in fact, they're complaining about something that they're actually participating in. The irony of that. And it also turns out they're heavily subsidized. The animal agriculture in Australia is heavily subsidized. A lot of animal agriculture is heavily subsidized. If we were actually paying the amount we're supposed to be paying for animal products, it would be way, way more than what we actually are paying. But we're paying a price anyway, because animal agriculture is not only destroying the environment, it's causing the sixth mass extinction, it's actually destroying the oceans, it's causing tremendous water shortages because it's such a huge drain on water. It's actually the greatest deforester around. Look at the Amazon rainforest. At 1 acre every minute was being destroyed by animal agriculture and soy to feed animals in feedlots around the world. Now it's 2.5 acres because Bolsonaro is upping the ante with the animal agriculture. And so the Amazon rainforest, animal agriculture is the greatest destroyer in the Amazon rainforest. So there's a huge price to pay because we're not vegan. And when I see these continual articles about farmers crying because the droughts are so bad that they're having to give up their dairy farms and their beef farms and so forth, I just think, well, it's good that you have to give it up, but I wish you were giving it up because you recognize the climate crisis is a direct result of animal agriculture. It's one of the major drivers, as you can see by these two memes I'm going to show you. So, it's actually becoming such an issue now in Australia that there are farmers who are abandoning. There was one farmer I mentioned in another video that has abandoned animal agriculture, and now he's growing chickpeas, because that's easier, it takes up far, far less water, and he's moving north to do that. So I hope that more and more farmers actually start growing beans and give up this dreadful animal agriculture that is responsible for tremendous violence, and it's also destroying the environment, and it's leading to the ecocide of the planet. And I'll just mention this one area, New South Wales mid-north coast, is usually a lush part of the country in Australia with reliable rain and regular flooding. But the region has been in drought for 2 years now, and farmers say it is starting to bite. Quote, "We normally get 40 inches of rain a year, and I think we are up to around 8 inches of rain." That's a fourth-generational beef farmer, Tony Saul, he told the 7:30 report. So 40 inches down to 8 inches, and that's not going to get any better. So we may as well just, rather than being dragged into ending animal agriculture, which is what's going to happen because the looming food crisis is upon us, and animal agriculture cannot feed a population of 10 billion, which is what it's going to be in 2050 if we're still around. So we're going to have to, it's either let go or be dragged. So we need to go vegan and end this ridiculous, violent, and earth-destroying activity of animal agriculture. And it's all up to you and I to do it, because without the demand for animal products, there would be no supply. And if you're following the constant warmongering against Iran, Iran's made it very clear that they're not going to put up with this, and if there's any sort of military action against them, they're going to have, they said they're going to, quote, "have a crushing and comprehensive answer to possible evil actions," end quote. So, I mean, Iran is fed up of the US trying to causing all these false flags, like this recent one in Saudi Arabia with the bombing of these oil fields, which was actually the Houthis in Yemen, who are being, there's a genocide in Yemen by the US and Saudi, the US-backed Saudi monarchy, causing a genocide in Yemen, and the Houthis are fighting back against this genocide. And the Houthis were the ones, they actually owned up to it. They bombed the oil fields in Saudi Arabia. So what does the Trump administration do? They, of course, try to blame Iran. Well, that's ridiculous, and that's just, you see, they're itching to invade Iran, and any excuse will do. It's just this ongoing warmongering, and it gets exhausting. I'm sure that you find it exhausting, because you just know that if it's not that, they just keep on trying, and, if it's not oil tankers being taken, it's or meddled with, it's this, and it'll be something else. They'll just up it until they say, see, that we've got all this evidence now we're going to invade Iran. And our stupid government here in Australia, the Scott Morrison government, it's like US says jump and we say how high. We're just a vassal state to the US empire. I don't really know how this is going to end, but if it keeps on going like this, I think it's going to end badly, and the US will have bitten off way more than they can chew. I think they, in their hubris and their American exceptionalist attitudes, etc., they think that it's going to be easy. Well, some stupid people in the administration think it's going to be easy, that it's going to be a disaster, because there'll be so many countries come to their aid, including Russia and China. It'll probably be a World War III. And lastly, the Israeli elections were a referendum, really, on who can treat Palestinians most harshly. That was the title to an essay by Diana Batu on thenation.com. And Netanyahu, it looks like he's out. And then there's this guy called Gantz, who's actually even more right-wing than Netanyahu. It's hard to imagine that's the case, but it is, and that's truly the case. Whoever gets in, whoever basically gets in, they're getting in because they're going to treat the Palestinians and worse than the last lot. That's how it goes now, because there's been an ongoing genocide in Yemen now for decades, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And if you watch Avi Martin's docu-film Gaza Fights for Freedom, you can find out about that, and also Killing Gaza by Max Blumenthal and Ben Norton, and watch the EmpireFiles.tv, the EmpireFiles.tv, to find out the 7 programs that they have there on that issue. It's an apartheid state. It's much, much worse than an apartheid state for the Palestinians, and the way that we can globally address this is through the boycott, divestments and sanctions movement, because that will help end this dreadful situation for Palestinians. But anyway, it looks like a worse person, if that's possible, is now getting into office. G-A-N-T-Z, I think, Gantz. And it's just going to be more and more suffering and killing for Palestinians. So anyway, that's probably all I'm going to talk about right now. I mentioned the bird populations are collapsing in the last video. I'll just quickly mention a couple of stats from that. This is, as I said, if you're not vegan, we're contributing to the sixth mass extinction directly, and that's a scientific fact. The key points in this essay are there are 2.9 billion fewer birds in North America today compared to 1970. Bird collapses are coinciding with insect collapses in many parts of the world, and that is a major issue. If you don't know why insect populations collapsing is an important issue, please look online, because it's no small potatoes. So anyway, and also it's very easy to miss the signs of this happening, and that's another problem. So anyway, I'll leave this essay. I might actually do a whole video on this essay, because it has some very important science in it, and I think it's very, very important that we understand it, understand what's happening, and it's just more awful things that are happening every single day due to our human species destroying this planet, and we need to do something. And one of the things we can do is go vegan. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. My name is Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Please click the like button if you like the content. Please hit the notifications bell and subscribe, otherwise you don't receive updates. And till next time, go vegan. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.